rain is Tess, the fire is Joe, and they call the wind Mariah. Mariah blows the stars around and sets the clouds a-flying. Mariah makes the mountains sound like...
Feminism is about liberation. We tend to forget that. Today, there's a vast amount of feminist and women-identified material or women-directed work, but it's not necessarily easy to find or see. What's really important is that we've had a lot of discussion in the public, I think, about women's voices, but we haven't had a lot of discussion about women's visions. And if we don't have our visions, it's very hard to see what kind of, hopes and aspirations we have for ourselves and for our society. So how today does a young woman find and see these kinds of empowering images? Well, the internet is filled with material, but if you try to do a search on the internet, say for the word feminist, you get a lot of anti-feminist material. That'll come up first. So what are the other tools that you have for looking for material? So the history of feminist media is really not taught to a great degree in a lot of universities and colleges. That's a big problem, so that there's a whole sort of history of the visualization of the stories that we've been talking about. They're unknown and unseen. So it's very hard for women to actualize and see their lives in different kinds of ways as a result. I think Zola, working behind the camera, can speak to that issue from her own college experience. A few years ago at the Experiments in Cinema conference, a young woman showed her film about a woman who was sort of trying out different kinds of professions and getting rejected. And I raised my hand and said, "Excuse me, have you ever seen Leanne Brandon's Anything You Want to Be?" One, she'd never heard of it, let alone seen it. But here she was sort of almost recreating the same kind of story. And the problem was that the real point that I'm trying to make is, as a result, we're kind of recreating the wheel, not learning to both stand on the shoulders of the images of women who've gone before us, which is critical. We can't advance if we don't have a whole ongoing history of our imagery to move us forward. The other problem, or another problem really, is that college libraries, and maybe even our own community libraries, are not buying women's works sufficiently. That has an economic issue and impact on women filmmakers. And major movie theaters is another kind of problem. In 2018, I think it was, a global study actually, came out, and it showed what the volume was or showing of women's directed work in mainstream movie theaters. And the highest was in Sweden at about 7%. In the United States, it was 2.75%. Pretty outrageous, if you ask me, when in the independent film community, women make up probably close to 50% of the filmmakers. It's not quite so high in Hollywood, but means that there's a lot of work that's available but is not shown. Even in New York City, the capital of independent media, the cultural venues there are not showcasing women at the rate in which we're producing it. Barbara O'Leary is the catalyst of a great project called Directed by Women. She's done a huge job as a volunteer showcasing women's work, encouraging women's film festivals to happen. She has an annual event that she encourages in September. She's also cataloged a huge collection, maybe 13,000 or more, of women's films in a database. And then also a series of sort of reviews of women's films. All of that stuff is available online. Most of that kind of work, even I haven't had an opportunity to see, but I do keep my eye out on things that are going on, and I'm going to show you in some of the clips work from across the globe. In Europe, there's a network of the network of audiovisual filmmakers, women filmmakers, and they're lobbying the EU about better equity of production and distribution and showcasing of women's films throughout Europe. In the US, we don't have anything like that going on. There's not a cultural minister that we can take these issues to, nor is there a national organization working on addressing these issues from a national point of view. So things in the US are very piecemeal and slow. This is all related to what Laura Mulvey and I have been saying, that we thought we'd be much further along by now. In the US also, we have no publication that comes out on any kind of regular basis that's non-academic, that is available sort of to a general audience, that discusses feminist media and allows us to learn more, talk about theory, exchange information about women's films. Whereas in Germany, there's a publication that's been operative since 1974. And for young girls, there's a great site called New Moon Girls, and a magazine that they publish for, by, and about young girls ages 8 to 14. So we need more things like that, and we need to learn about them, where they are, where these pockets are for expanding women's voices and visions. It's a shame that the mainstream media seems to be so recalcitrant in picking up any of this. So it's up to us to sort of like find and share this kind of material. And this is what we have to do in order to, create more change. Also, as we move forward, we need to keep in mind 3 basic feminist principles that were devised in the mid-70s. And I'm putting those up on the screen too to share. So I hope that's enough for today, and stay tuned for a future idea flurry.